Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our show. For today's episode, we are going to be talking about data and marketing. Specifically, we are going to be looking at how some organizations like banks use big data to improve their marketing and the personalization of their offers. When we think of marketing, like really good marketing, often what is going to be most important is the personalization, the segmentation. And we have an expert with us today who helps financial organizations do exactly that. So with us, we have Jenn Underwood, who has extensive expertise in personal finance and a passion for equitable financial access. She has spent a decade helping people take charge of their finances using behavioral economics and is a regular contributor to Forbes Advisor and works in product development at FinGoal, an insights platform that empowers banks to better understand their users and improve personalization. And it's this personalization through better data that brings us here today. She is a personal finance writer for Forbes Advisor, USA Today Blueprint, and several startups, and has provided over 4,000 hours of behavioral-based career and finance coaching. So when it comes to behavioral economics, one of the things that I wanted to do with the show is really dig into the more technical, nerdy, more gritty aspects of marketing, right? Like how do we, especially in this age of AI, how do we get better at what we do? And so through personalization, big data, and behavioral economics, that is one of the ways that we can really provide the best marketing for our clients. So Jenn, welcome to the show. So excited to have you here.
Thanks, Luz. It's so nice to be here. And thanks for taking the time to chat about a topic I'm way too invested in.
Absolutely. So first question for you, so we can get to know you a little bit better. Behavioral economics, how did you end up here? Why this field?
Yeah, so I originally started working with college students, and I was running a leadership program, often taking them on trips. I had college students coming into my office on a regular basis, telling me they couldn't afford to go, they needed a scholarship. And I could tell by other tips and tricks that were in that conversation that it wasn't so much that they couldn't afford to go, but that they were allowing their emotions often to control how they spent their money. So behavioral economics acknowledges that money is not logical, it's emotional. Traditional economics historically has assumed that whatever the wisest, best course of action was for consumers, they would naturally choose. But behavioral economics acknowledges that we vote with our wallet, spend money on things that we think are important, that money is often driven by emotions. Depending on your stress level or your mood, it changes how you spend your money, where you spend your money, how much money you're spending. And so it just made sense for me to dive into it. And then I got into financial coaching, and what I realized was that it's very empowering for people to take a step back and realize, what are the things that compel me to change my spending habits? What are the things that trip me up? Some people do great if they spend only cash. Other people are very responsible with credit cards, and figuring out what works for you is really important. How do you psychologically think about a sale? Does a sale naturally make something feel like a better deal? Or, do you subconsciously think that it must not be a good enough product?
Absolutely. And when we think about behavioral economics and its connection to marketing, why does behavioral economics matter to marketing? So you've talked about finances, how it makes sense, but let's think about the connection to marketing. Why is this relevant to people in the marketing space?
Very similar to the consumer. If you understand how your customers spend their money, you're going to do a much better job surfacing them relevant offers at the right time. So in particular, a lot of times people get bombarded with deals during the holiday season, and they get bombarded with deals that are for them. What's interesting, though, is that psychologically, we are predispositioned to be spending money on other people. So your marketing dollars are not best suited to target the needs of the consumer that's seeing your advertising at that moment in that season. You may be better suited for something around Valentine's Day or something around Mother's Day to target the individual who's more likely to treat themselves at that time.
And then also just generally, guys, when we think about behavioral economics, this is the understanding of why humans do what we do. When especially one of the parts of marketing that I find to be really fascinating is branding. And branding, if you have dug deep into the science of branding, it's a really wacky world where so many things don't make sense. And part of the reason it doesn't make sense is, like Jenn was saying, while economists might think that we are, we make the most rational decisions given the sort of the options that we've been given, what we have found through behavioral economics is that's actually not the case. And so as marketers, people in branding and advertising, it is really important to understand the human, right? The human that's seeing our marketing, the human that is seeing these ads, the human psychology in terms of how people respond to various aspects of the marketing that we do. And so today, what we're going to be looking at is an example of an organization that supports financial organizations in better looking and better having access to organizations like banks. They have a lot of data. And so if you are not a bank, but you are an organization that has a lot of data, I want you guys to think about, what are we doing right by our data? And could we be using this data to do better marketing, which should, if marketing done well, should mean more sales. Also keeping the clients that you have, right? The sort of the connections are really important. And so an example today, we'll be speaking with Jenn about what this looks like with financial institutions. So Jenn, how can transactional data improve marketing? What is transactional data for your organization as you guys work with these financial institutions? Why did you start looking at transactional data, and how can it improve these financial institutions' marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times marketers tend to think about social media data, how people are navigating to websites and what they're viewing, what pages they're interacting with. You're also familiar with receipt level data. When you go to a store and you get a receipt, it has a record of all of the purchases that you made and how much each one of them cost. Transactional level data is kind of in the middle. It is it basically includes the date, the merchant, the amount spent, sometimes the method of payment. In that, when you log into your banking platform, you can see all of the purchases that you've made or all of the bills that you've paid. And historically, transaction data is really messy. Points of sale. So if you go and make a purchase from a Square reader, or if you log in online and make a purchase at that same merchant, or if maybe you go to a physical checkout stand and you make a purchase there, even if that is the same merchant in 3 different locations, that data may look very different. So one of the things that FinGoal, the startup company that I work with, does is we clean up that data. But then we've realized banks have access to much more data than any large company out there, than Target, than Walmart, than Amazon. Those companies know what you've purchased with them, but your bank has access to information about where you spend money in the world at large. And many banks have not leveraged that data to really understand their customers and understand their needs. And in a world where marketing has become increasingly more personal and increasingly more human-centric, not leveraging the banking data, not leveraging that transaction data, is basically communicating to your customers that you don't care about their needs and you don't know who they are. So one of the things that transaction level data can help you do is you can dig much more deeply into what's going on with a customer. You can identify if they've received a tax refund recently, if they've received an increase in income or a decrease in income. You can see if their car repair bills went up. And what that allows you to do is to surface an offer that is timely and relevant, often before they even know that they need it or before they've done the research. If you rely on traditional marketing data, once a customer has started researching new cars, then you're going to offer them new car offers. What tends to happen, though, on the financial side, is that most customers aren't comfortable or familiar enough with their bank to know that their bank would give them a car loan. And it feels like a pretty big step to go into your bank or to contact them online and to apply for a car loan. It's like filling up your gas tank by going into the service station and telling them how much money you want to put on that card. You're like, wait a minute, I don't know how much gas is actually going to go in this car, right? When you shop for a car, you might have an idea of what you can afford, but often we rely on the dealer to help us process what's a monthly payment going to be? How much car can I afford? This is what I think I want to pay, but what's out there? When we put that power into the hands of the dealership is invested in getting you into a car that is a good sale for them. But if your bank were to say, based on your behavior, we see that you might be thinking about looking for a car. Did you know that we've already pre-qualified you for a car loan of this much? Or come in and talk to a banker and we'd be more than happy to help you, evaluate your budget and see what you can truly afford. Then you make the financial decision first, and you have much more buying power when you go into the dealership, because you don't need to rely on them for that, buy here, pay here loan. It's going to be a higher interest rate. It's going to take advantage of you. That's going to be worked into the offer of how much they're going to give you on the trade-in and how much the car really is and what's the interest rate. And it's just one less piece for them to leverage when they're looking at how much they can charge you on that car.
And when we think of, so you and I were talking about this, how banks and financial institutions currently do this, how they currently, share their offers with their clients. You were talking about, like, I got this offer that's completely irrelevant to me. And so that can be such a turnoff. So can you talk about how is it that this is currently done? And for those of you that are not in banking, I understand that our conversation today is around financial institutions, but I want you to think of what sort of data does my business or the client that I work with, what sort of data do they have access to? And how is it just sitting there? And how can we better utilize that data, whether it's transactional data or any other type of data, to better market the right offers? So what's currently happening with banks?
Sure. So historically, if you've ever bought a home, after you close on that home and you move in, you get bombarded with offers to refinance. Well, if you know anything about finance, the worst time to refinance is right after you bought a home. You've already paid all those origination and closing costs, right? You don't want to shop for a new loan at that point. Similarly, as soon as you start investing with another financial advisor, or maybe with a robo-investor, your bank may start bombarding you with offers that says, do you know that you can invest here? And you're like, well, I've already moved my investments to this other location. Had you told me beforehand, I might have considered it. But they often are reactionary. And with financial decisions, and even with infrequent decisions, you need to hit the customer before they make the decision, not after.
And so what you guys think of, your own clients or the clients of the people that you work with, in what ways is the marketing that you're doing reactionary, right? In what ways are the offers that are being presented to the end client purchaser, is that reactionary? And again, how can you think of getting ahead of that? So let's move on to the next question, which is, why is it important to have quality data in marketing? What does quality data mean, and why is it important in marketing?
So quality data is data that really you can use. I mean, if you've ever, you probably looked at your own bank account and at some point seen the description, and it was just a string of numbers. Frequently, the merchant shows up as the primary merchant's name, not the doing business as name, which can be very confusing. You're like, I went to the store, called Forever 21, and now I'm seeing this company name, ABC Company, and I didn't even know that they were connected. So that can be really frustrating. From a banking perspective, having quality data can save you hundreds of dollars, because when people see a transaction that they don't recognize, they may call your fraud line and say, wait a minute, I don't think I made this purchase. And you may have to have a 2, 3, 5-minute conversation with your call center in order for them to realize, oh, they did make that purchase, but it split the purchase and the tip is coming later, or it was an online purchase and they were only paid for the portion that they, that's previously been shipped, like we see at Amazon all the time. Or they may just not recognize the name of the business. It may be just gobbledygook and they can't make it out. But if you have quality data, and not just your data, especially for banks, more and more consumers have bank accounts at different banks, especially if their primary bank is a large bank. Large banks historically do not pay very good interest. And right now, challenger banks, or banks that we think of as online banks, Marcus, Capital One, other banks like that, are paying huge interest rates. The Apple Card announced yesterday that they're going to be paying 4.15% interest on money held in your Apple Cash, which is really interesting to think about, right? Because we don't even think about them as a bank, but that's somebody who's leveraging your financial data. And a lot of fintechs already are leveraging that data. So you think about Venmo or PayPal, they know a lot about your buying habits. And if you as a small bank or a local credit union want to stay competitive, you need to think of investing in how do you get access to quality data, and then how are you using it, right? So, we talked earlier about banks just kind of sending the same offer to everybody, right? Customers don't have patience for that. At max, you've got 3 emails a month, right? Even at that point, they might get annoyed and they stop reading them. But if you develop a pattern of surfacing the right offer that feels relevant, even if they're not ready to take that step, it might plant a seed, might get them thinking. You, by telling them that you believe they're financially in a good place to be trusted with those products, might build their confidence. They might be more willing to, rather than shopping around, to stay loyal to their bank. There's a massive return on investment for offering other financial products. Gone are the days where banks just, could garner customer loyalty because they got them into a checking account, right? A lot of customers have a checking account at one bank. They have a savings account at another bank. They've opened their CDs at banks that were offering them the best offers. I am out of the norm, but I currently have bank accounts at 11 different institutions.
Wow.
Now, I'm the nerd and not the norm, but you can assume that most of your customers have banks at 2 to 3 different institutions. So part of getting quality data is allowing them to aggregate their data. You've probably seen that your bank account may allow you to connect your mortgage or connect your car payment if it's at a different institution, or connect your credit cards. What that is doing is both serving you so that you can see all your finances in one place, and they can notify you of upcoming bills and maybe help you with a personal financial management tool like a budgeting app. But it also allows them to see all of your financial history and to make some more informed decisions about whether they should be offering you products that you're maybe not taking advantage of at their current institution.
That's relevant. So again, this is financial institutions focused, but if you guys can think about sort of data do you have or do your clients have? And then how could you clean up that data so the marketing team has access to it so they can better market the right offers through the right marketing means so you can have better results for the people that you're working with?
Yeah. One more thing before we leave that. I think leveraging transaction data allows you to market for good, meaning that you are marketing a product that is naturally beneficial to the consumer. You're not creating a need. You're not generating this sense of longing or insufficiency, all the stereotypes that come about with marketing, right? Instead, you are helping to provide a solution to a need that's maybe not even been felt or realized yet. And when you do that, that develops loyalty.
I mean, so that goes on to the next point that we were going to speak about, which is how do you anticipate those customer needs, right? Rather than generating desire. Yep. So often in marketing, we can focus on the generating desire. And as Jen was talking about, it can be so much more powerful, like Steve Jobs anticipating what people were looking for. It wasn't called an iPod, but it was having access to the music that I want to listen to whenever I want to listen to in my pocket, right? So how can your organization or the organization that you're working with better anticipate the needs of the person that's going to be most important to them, their client, rather than focusing on generating desire?
Yeah. My pet peeve is bank fees. If you are cultivating healthy, financially stable customers, you're going to make way more money on them than charging them fees. I would say, ideally, a bank is flagging any fee that a customer is paying and helping them get into a better account that more closely meets their needs. Beyond that, it might be identifying a high debt to income ratio and reaching out to develop a plan for reducing that. Personal loan might be a great offer. And a lot of people don't understand the high APR on a credit card. And so if you as a bank can say, we think we can save you money, we can offer you a product that would benefit us because we're selling you a financial product, but it would benefit you because we're saving you money and we're putting more money into your pocket. Those are ways that you anticipate the need before they even know to ask. Other things are increasing utility bills. Might be a sign that your furnace or your air conditioning needs to be fixed. If you are a local bank, you know all of the local rebates available for people who are moving into more environmentally sustainable products. So you could surface a home improvement loan offer and information about rebated products, helping them make steps to better their lives. Before that, air conditioning goes out and then they're paying double to get it replaced in the middle of August.
Yeah. So for you guys to think about, how can you anticipate? How are you currently anticipating? Are you anticipating? And how can you better anticipate the needs of the end user, the purchaser, the client, so that we can have the right offers and you connect the right offer to the right marketing campaign? What are some of the negative impacts of generic product offers?
I love that you asked me this question. I'll use them because they're a large merchant.
Great.
I would say last Mother's Day, Chase sent me a kids debit card offer.
Yeah.
Now, it's their big marketing effort. It was on every website, banner. I got bombarded with emails, but I got a personalized offer that was like, hey, Jen, here's this kid's debit card. Now, I've applied for a mortgage through Chase. I've banked with them for over a decade. They should know I don't have children.
Yeah.
besides that, Mother's Day is a horrible day to send out marketing, period. You never know how things are going to land on holidays, right? Especially something so emotional. Now, I've not struggled with infertility. It's not, it's not something that stresses me out, but think about the emotional impact of providing a generic offer that is not relevant at this level. It's not going to just be ignored, right? It's going to potentially wound a customer emotionally. And it's going to sow a massive seed of distrust and maybe even cause them to bank elsewhere. Right? They have tons of offers that could be targeted to the right customer at the right time. Right? On a smaller level, let's say you were offering me a car loan and you've given me an interest rate or an interest rate range, and that sounds pretty good, but you've put, in my case, maybe a family in a minivan on that offer because of my age. Well, that's equally silly, right? Because I'm interested in rock climbing and cycling and I travel and I want a fuel efficient car, right? You could determine those things about me based on my transaction data. And you could offer even a relevant offer with better imagery. Imagery that would land, so that you're not surfacing, a gas guzzling truck to me. You're surfacing a fuel efficient car with a decent amount of clearance so that I can still go hiking.
Yeah. And as I think of, especially everything that's been shaking up the marketing world, the advertising world with AI, I wrote an article in which I was saying one of the things that will need to happen for marketers going forward, since there's just going to be a lot more content. There's going to be not necessarily better content, maybe in some ways, but there's just going to be more marketing. There's going to be more people, creating noise in the landscape. And so when that happens, the segmentation, personalization, right, is going to be so important. And so one of the things that I want you guys to think about is, how are you better personalizing? Do you have ways to really understand the data that you have access to and convert that into better personalization, segmentation, better marketing that is connected to the right and relevant offers? Because otherwise, I think it's just going to be a very noisy space, and the people that are successful in the personalization segmentation will be the people, the organizations that will be successful. What are some ways to better cultivate and leverage client data that's essential for personalization?
Yeah, so one of the big trends is pay by bank. So you lose a ton of money paying for transaction fees. And if you have regular clientele that's making monthly payments or coming into your establishment 2-3 times a month, if you could pass those savings on to your customer, they can pay by bank. They can link their bank account, and it's, oddly enough, very safe because you're connecting a token. You're not really receiving their banking account data. They're not really sharing it. It's a tokenized, protected transaction where you basically provide permission for this transaction to happen. But depending on how it's permissioned, you could also ask to see their transaction data. And in doing so, one of the things that's really beneficial is that you get more information about how that person is shopping, how they're voting with their wallet, and what else is going on in their lives. There are a lot of companies that provide rebates on transactions and things like that. And so you're already doing some sort of card linkage, right? So there's different permissions for how money and how information are presented. And you want to dial that down as strict as possible for what your need is. But I mean, Shell has a fuel rewards program where I can connect my credit card. And anytime I make a transaction or a purchase at a qualifying restaurant with that card, I get whatever the offer was. So, there are different levels of ways to do this. And, I recommend exploring, how are other people in your space using this? Learn from them. It's interesting because this is so new. And in certain markets, it feels like a lot of information. In certain markets, they're already, so ready to go, and they're like just waiting for the technology to catch up. But I would say be aware of what your competitors are doing, and think about ways to leverage the data you already have. So if you have a store credit card, and that store credit card is MasterCard or Visa compliant, and they're using that card for purchases outside of your store, evaluate whether that can be, data that can be appropriately leveraged through the correct permissionings. Talk to people in the fintech space. Partnering with a fintech company like FinGoal is a great way to do this. Don't feel like you need to do it all on your own. You can tell just by what I said that, the security ramifications could be large. So, talk to an expert, evaluate it. Don't try and go about it on your own. Oftentimes the amount of development that's gone into it at the fintech level can be leveraged for significantly less than you could do if you were looking at doing it internally.
And then something that I think would be, relevant and powerful for our listeners, for our viewers, is sharing any sort of case studies of where the things that we have talked about, the personalization, the better access to data, high quality data, how that has led to better marketing in, with clients that you've worked with in your, own business. So what examples of better data equaling better marketing can you walk us through?
Yeah, I'm going to start with a personal example because the personal ones are the ones that hit home, right?
Yeah.
I travel a lot. I love it. Boeing Credit Union, so one of the many financial institutions I have an account at. I actually got a car loan through them because they gave me the best offer eons ago, kept the account. They treated me well. I don't live in Washington anymore, but I've got some customer loyalty going on. And I got an offer surfaced because I paid for a large airline flight on my credit card through them. And one of the things that's really interesting is that they sent me a reminder that they charge very low foreign transaction fees on debit cards. Now, I have a couple of credit cards that I'm loyal to when I travel because they charge no foreign transaction fees, but virtually nobody charges low foreign currency conversion rates on ATMs and things like that. And so I did a little bit of research and I was like, oh, this is a great deal. And so I, I transferred some money in over there and I used that debit card when I traveled internationally. It's the right offer at the right time. And, then they ended up with more of my money. They ended up with the benefit of the transaction fees and
even more loyalty.
Absolutely. Some stuff that we've been working with our customers on is, really helping them to create a marketing campaign that's targeted to their user. So we're API based. That's a application programming interface. If you're not familiar with it, you basically your digital platform basically calls for information from us and we provide the information. You surface it in your own digital platform. And if you're operating on another digital platform, same type of thing, we could build a relationship. But one of the things that allows you to do is to take the information that we have tagged. We create user tags, and those user tags help identify things like pet owner or scuba focused or, international traveler. And so when we surface that information to you, you then can create a car loan that's very targeted, right? So you get an idea of, should you put a dog in the, marketing material or a cat, right? Should you, do you want to, showcase a car that has enough trunk capacity for all your scuba diving gear and you put it in there, right? And in the day and age when you can just remove and replace images, it's very easy for you to dial in, okay, I currently, based on this product, want individuals who are, in this rough age range, who have children and who live in these states and who express an interest in X, Y, or Z hobby. And then because of that, you end up with, the correct pool of people to surface that offer to. And so that's been really fun. The other thing that's really interesting to think about is as housing has become much more challenging, a lot of times people, when they increase, when their family grows, and you can kind of, we can help you identify whether, there are kids of different age ranges or what have you. In doing so, you've got clients who are trying to figure out, should I move? Should I completely relocate, like to another city that's maybe more affordable? Or do I consider a home improvement loan? And by acknowledging that you probably feel that tension with them and, providing them with a comparison of the options, you are letting them know that you're invested in their financial choices, their large financial choices that oftentimes people feel alone making. So it's a great opportunity for you to say, I've identified that you're probably in this, weird, sketchy stage of, what do I do next? Do we need to uproot our lives? Our kids are in school here. We love it. How do you evaluate those choices from a financial standpoint? And we're the financial experts. So let's give you a little advice.
So what I'm hearing is both the opportunity that we have now for hyper personalized marketing, and I'm really excited about a future where we can see this really being implemented, and then basically having a partner in decision making. So how can we, rather than just provide offers, how can we really come alongside our clients and be more of a partner in decision making where it's a win-win for both?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So again, we've been focused a lot on financial institutions. So now that we're wrapping up, if you're not a bank, if you're not a financial institution, if you are, some business that doesn't have access to transactional data, how can other businesses, or if you are working at an agency, if you're a marketer that works for a startup, and your clients don't have access to transactional data, how would you encourage people in a marketing position, in a marketing role, to better utilize personalization, data, the right offers? If how can they find that data? What can they do with the data that they have access to so they can provide better marketing for the right offers?
Yeah. And it's so interesting because when we look at customer data, we often don't see the story behind the numbers. So even if you just have the purchase history for a customer in your individual space, right? So in January, they were shopping, 4 times a month. In February, they were shopping 3 times a month. In March, they were shopping 2 times a month, right? That's a good time to acknowledge that something has changed. You may not know what it is, but something has changed. And for you to express interest, right? Typically, we do that in a way of like, we haven't seen you in a while. And it kind of comes across as a little needy. It's like dating. Like, I haven't seen you in a while. Pay attention to me. But instead, if you could, acknowledge, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. Inflation is up, and we totally get that. Might be why you're not here, but here's an offer if you're interested in coming back in. Now, again, there's risk, there's loss there, but that's just a way to take the information that you have and think through that. There are companies like Cardlytics that do this all the time. If you've ever logged into your bank account and seen offers, 4% off if you're, eating at this restaurant, or if you're going to Lowe's, you can get 2% back or things like that. These companies have frequently partnered with a third party to help identify transaction changes and allow them to kind of come in and be that third party bridge, which you could definitely consider. Some of it might be that you consider leveraging the information you've gathered. If you have a loyalty program, oftentimes we collect email and phone number just to market to people, right? But if you know somebody's zip code, there's a lot of information you can determine based on their zip code. There's a company, Spatial, that does that. And based on zip code and a few other pieces of information, you can identify your best customers, and then also buy customers that are similar to your best customers. Now, all of that said, you can really step up your game. You can reach out to a company like FinGoal and say, hey, this is who we are and this is how we function. And if you want to dream big, evaluate whether that's a good space for you. It's a moving target. And there's a lot of quickly moving pieces. As you said, AI is quickly changing the landscape. One of the things that's really interesting is that you can start making some assumptions just based on, the types of products that people are buying within your establishment. So it might be evaluating, you may not have transaction level data, but you do have receipt level data, and that's totally different. And so based on previous purchases, how are you surfacing things that are in line with those purchases, maybe supplemental to those purchases, or kind of the next logical step? Ooh. Did I lose you volume-wise?
Sorry, it was on mute. So I think the biggest takeaway for anyone that's listening or watching is really take a look at what data do you have access to? Mm-hmm. And if you are working at an agency and you're working for a client, looking at what sort of data does your client have access to? Is that data being converted into actionable marketing, into better offers? And if not, how can you be part of the reason that this data is actually used rather than just sitting there? So first question is like, what is the data? How can we better clean up that data, and how can we use that data then to inform better offers and better marketing? Because when we have relevant offers and better marketing that's connected to the right offers, then at the end of the day, that is improving on the ROI, which is why you were hired as a marketer in the first place. So again, I think that the biggest question, the biggest takeaway is thinking about what sort of data does this organization have access to? Is it, do we have access to like a gold mine that's just being ignored, data that's just sitting there that could really help the marketing team, that could really help the organization as a whole? And how can we be part of the reason that data isn't just being ignored, but it's actually being turned into actionable insights and, strategy? So, Jenn, if you could think of 3 actionable for, not just people in the financial space, but just in the general marketing space, actionable steps for them to take, what 3 steps would you, or 3 takeaways, 3 do this, make sure that you take action on this, what would your 3 actionable steps be?
Absolutely. So my first kind of touches on, I think, a pet peeve a lot of people have. If you ever called customer service and you've had to provide the same information 3 and 4 times, right? You want to make sure that as a marketer, you are not creating that internal dissonance for your customers, where your customer says, I've already shared this information with you. Why do you not know it? So think about ways to leverage, like Lou said, the data you already have, and to indicate that you have listened, that you know A, B, and C, and you're looking for D, right? So you establish a baseline of this is who you are significant, we have listened. So it's not just collecting the data, but it's also indicating that you are using the data respectfully. You don't want to have the creep factor. Just like, I mean, because it can be really creepy. I'm constantly faced with the ethical dilemma of how much information I could assess and whether I should assess that. And we always want to make sure that we're in the do no harm, that we are looking for ways to empower the customer. So I'd say that third thing. So, find the data, acknowledge that you've, seen or using the data. The third thing is be very respectful of the data. There are some really powerful ways that you could manipulate, or you could talk a customer into a product that is not beneficial for them. And you're going to get that sale, but that's going to be a one-time sale. So think about how you are strategically positioning yourself to be a long-term partnership with that individual. Think about how you are marketing for good and benefiting them, because when a customer feels like they've been taken care of, that's a loyal customer.
I love that. So I think we hopefully all can agree to the last point of do no harm. I think that that's a really good point, right? The ethics of marketing, especially as we have access to more data, more of this hyper personalization. How do we make sure that we do this responsibly and ethically? Awesome. So if people have questions, maybe we have some listeners who do work at a financial institution, or maybe you want to have access to some of the data that, and I don't know exactly if you guys provide some of the data.
We don't. We process data.
Right. So process. So if you are a financial institution, and if they wanted to learn more about you, how could people reach out and learn more?
Yeah. So I'll start with the company. The company is FinGoal, FinGoal.com. You're welcome to check us out there. I've written some of the blogs that are on that site. You are also welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to hear more. I love to geek out on these topics and would be happy to chat. And so it's Jenn Underwood is the endpoint. Can you tell I work in tech? Is the endpoint on that URL. But I think that the link will be in this podcast. And then I write a lot of personal finance stuff on Forbes and on Medium, and those links will be available to you as well. I'd love for you to check them out. I feel very passionate that nobody should pay banking or credit card fees. And so if you know somebody in your life who feels bogged down and overwhelmed by the finances that they are struggling with, debt can can feel insurmountable. And so a lot of what I write is just helping people to know more. And it's not selling anything. It's just helping individuals evaluate products or learn to avoid fees and the negative impacts of debt.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you everyone for listening, for watching along. And we will catch you next time with another episode where we look into the nerdy side of branding, marketing, and advertising. So until then, I'll catch you guys later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.